Okay, Mark, you're good to go.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. We've got the 2020-2022 budget hearing here first this evening. The public budget hearing for the Forest Grove School District is called to order in accordance with ORS 294.430. This opportunity is for public comment regarding the 2021-2022 budget approved by the Budget Committee and referred to the school board for adoption. In accordance with district policy, public criticism or complaints about district personnel is not allowed. David Warner, okay. I say we're going to wait until 5:35. So
We actually started at 5:33, so we might need to wait till 5:38.
Okay, got it.
And there are no public comments regarding the budget hearing.
Okay. Do we? Not at this time. We'll give a few more minutes and then.
We're past 5:35, Mark, so you can adjourn it and start the regular meeting if you would like.
Okay, I was just wondering if we, Dave mentioned that we had to wait 5 minutes and we started.
Well, we just say the regular meeting will start at 5:35, so we don't have any comments.
Okay, all right, okay. So this concludes the budget hearing and public testimony regarding the 2021-2022 Forest Grove School District budget. And the budget hearing is adjourned at, it's like 5:36 p.m. We'll open up the school board meeting, the regular school board meeting. So the June 14, 2021 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 5:36 p.m. We'll do a roll call of board members present. I'm Mark Everett present. Kate Grandusky.
Present.
Brad Bafero.
Present.
Valerie Ingram.
Here.
And Narce Rodriguez. Okay, Narce will probably be joining us here momentarily. And then Miley Vernon is, she'll join us later. She's at practice, so she'll come in a little bit after 6. And we'll do her report when she, at a time when we can, once she joins us at a break there. So the school board will hear public comment for unscheduled public appearance received through the designated email address, which is publiccomment@fgsd.k12.or.us and is on the district website. Comments will be read by district staff at the appropriate time on the agenda and will be limited to 3 minutes. This time, Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks.
Hey, Mark, well, Narce did just log in, just so you know, we've got all 5 board members here now.
Okay, great. So Narce, you're with us? Okay. Let's do introduction of audience and of audience and staff. So see if I can go through here. So we've got well, Mr. O'Neill.
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Thanks, John. Eileen,
Eileen Kloop, business.
Kevin,
Kevin Reen, Director of Human Resources.
thanks. Juliana,
Juliana Kelly, Assistant Principal at NAMS.
Christy,
Good evening, Christy Freeman, Language Arts Teacher at Neil Armstrong Middle School, next year Assistant Principal.
okay, welcome. And Kim,
Kim Scheer, Director of Student Services.
and then it looks like Ted.
Ted's there, principal at Neil Armstrong for about one more week.
Yeah. And let's see, I think that's it. That's all that I see.
Enrique.
Oh, Enrique, okay,
Enrique Pignon, IT Manager.
okay. Can't
And David Warner.
And David.
And
David Warner,
Angela.
Communications.
And anybody else?
Angela.
Okay,
Angela Gray,
okay, sorry.
Yes, principal and summer program coordinator.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'm scrolling across and I miss people, I guess. So thanks very much. Okay, let me get back to the agenda here. So next item is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda as presented. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. So I'm a yes. Kate,
Yes.
Narce? Narce? She's on mute. We'll go to Brad
Yes.
and Val.
Yes.
Okay. Narce, are you, maybe she's, I don't know if she's on mute or. Okay,
Her photo's been popping up, but she may be having some audio problems.
okay, all right, okay. Well, that passes. So we go on to correspondence and celebrations and calendar notes, recognition, and generally the superintendent report. So I'll turn it over to you, Dave, at this point.
Thank you. So we are in our last week of school. Today was the last day of in-person for our A-Day students. Tomorrow will be the last day of school for our B-Day students. Wednesday will be a day for us to get back technology turn in and curriculum and everything else. It's been about 1.5 years since we've seen a lot of our technology. So it's important for us to get it back and kind of assess kind of where we're at. So Wednesday is a day for that to happen. Then Thursday and Friday are prep days, and then we are out on summer break. Before I do that, I just want to take a moment, and I've been saying this in my meetings with staff, but just take a moment to thank, number one, all of our employees. They've really been the heroes here, making all of these changes seemingly happen week by week. It seems like since last year, we've been things have been changing. So I just appreciate all that they've done to kind of make this year okay. To our parents, I want to thank you for working with us, and in some cases sitting side by side their student as the class is going on all year long. It's been a really interesting year for us as we've actually done school in people's homes. So again, want to thank them. Lastly, I want to say thanks to our students. You've definitely shown your resiliency and your optimism. You've come up to speed with the technology, and in some ways faster than other parts of our organization. You've been present, you've been engaged. Next year looks to be a return back to a more normal schedule and a pattern. While we still may have some health and safety guidelines in place, certainly we're headed for better times. And then the last kind of comment for us is summer is the summer programs. Our staff are working feverishly around trying to get all of this organized. This week, we should have information going out to students with signups and what's available, but just the amount of things that are going to be available this summer is really fantastic. And now it's just a matter of us getting the word out about it. So look for that this week. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Unscheduled public appearances, the next item on the agenda. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments should be submitted through the designated email address and will be read by district staff. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol during in-person board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed at this time. And are there any comments that have been received?
Yes, we have 3, so I can go ahead and read those now.
Okay.
The first one, reading through the meeting minutes as posted at the FGSD website for May 24th, 2021. I am dismayed to see reference to programs that address issues well beyond the purview of the district school system. 3 items in particular. The first is found on pages 14 through 17 in the section titled Educational Equity. I posed a question separately to Chairman Everett while asking for his stance on critical race theory prior to the recent election, to which he responded, quote, "The district does not have an adopted curriculum for critical race theory nor 1619 project," close quote. The reference pages in the meeting minutes indicate otherwise. I'll paste some of that here for reference. In order to achieve educational equity for each and every student, the district shall provide every student with equitable access to inclusive, culturally responsive curriculum, support, facilities, and other educational resources, even when this means differentiating resource allocation. The district shall provide materials and assessments that reflect the diversity of students and staff and are geared toward the understanding and appreciation of culture, race, ethnicity, national origin, language proficiency, socioeconomic status, mobility, sexual orientation, gender identity, and students with disabilities that contribute to the uniqueness of each student and staff member. Later, there is reference to the National Equity Project, which, from my brief perusal, most certainly is focusing on race as an issue. That is very much a driver in the recent social upheaval our nation has seen. Apparently, schools are intent in driving a wedge between the various races instead of simply teaching our children how to read, write, and cipher. By highlighting our differences, schools are enhancing the barriers to integration. In the same set of pages, there also appear definitions pulled from the Trevor Project. Incredible that you, the board, would consider this as a subject worthy of presenting to children. The acceptance of the very flawed Kinsey studies of decades ago has led to the current fixation on encouraging the very impressionable among us, example, children, to question their gender and sexual orientation. Why would the board approve that? Do you suppose that if in generally known parents would approve of such topics being presented to their children? For those very few that would, such study, if it has to be made available, should be an opt-in course, not opt-out. Still further in the minutes on page 34 and 35, a planned course statement for ethnic studies is presented. I'll copy the course overview here again for reference. Focus on Mesoamerica given the demographics of FGSD, but also including mini units to survey the LGBTQ, African American, Native American, and Asian American communities. The course will explore the artistic, historic, and cultural experiences and contributions of each of these groups, as well as current day issues and challenges they face. A central unifying theme would be identity. The aim of the course would be to especially increase awareness and pride in the ancestry of our Latinx community. Links to the expressions of that home culture here in the US will also be part of the class. Well, this certainly sounds like critical race theory wrapped tightly in a social justice warrior training kimono. It is unclear whether this is an elective or a required course. Either way, in my humble opinion, it has no place in our public schools. Teach children excellence, give them the classics to read and understand, teach them proper grammar, how to write, how to spell, teach them how to prove a theorem based on logic and deduction, teach them the laws of thermodynamics and real biology. Leave social engineering alone. Harold Hutchins, Forest Grove, father of 5 now fully grown children.
Hey,
Number
Mark.
2.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I just have a couple of comments about that, public comment. There's been a lot of local and national media coverage about critical race theory and its relationship with our public schools. In Oregon, there are no set content standards that require Oregon school districts to teach critical race theory in K-12 schools. In the Forest Grove School District, we value creating learning environments that ensure that our students experience identity safety. Our teachers and their staff are committed to cultivating classrooms where students can learn from the experiences of others and share their own experiences. In our schools, we teach standards. Some of the things that have been labeled critical race theory exist in Oregon standards. They show up in standards for language arts, they show up in standards for social science, and in our day-to-day conversations about safe and healthy schools. For instance, critical thinking skills related to an author's point of view often involve a critique of how an author of color might write a novel compared to an author who is white. Students from a young age are encouraged to use storytelling to express themselves. In social science, we discuss the history of European colonies and slavery, which eventually leads to critical thinking about the privileges that white people around the world have had today because of the color of their skin and their nations of origin. Here's an example of a social science standard, HS.53. Explain how power and privilege influence where people live and how they interact with their environment at the intergroup and institutional levels and how they have been affected. You see, this is built into our standards, and part of making schools safe and educating young people within our diverse community is being honest and engaging in critical thinking about the issues of race, racism, privilege, and point of view. We support our teachers in this work by providing professional development on a monthly basis on strategies to engage students in critical thinking, identity development, and cross-cultural skills. So I just wanted to, have a second to make those comments that we support our teachers in beginning to look at how race is impacting our students, and we aren't going to back off of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 more.
Okay.
Number 2, dear FGSD board members, I support the district keeping the relationship with the police department and the SRO program. It is my opinion from 18 years around law enforcement that this is vital to creating a community where the citizens know and truly believe that their law enforcement is there to serve the needs of the community. Law enforcement officers are walking, talking blessings to the community, and we have seen them villainized for a year now, and it's dangerous for everyone. Look at the cities that are, quote, defunding the police, for example. The violent crime rates are soaring. I am in support of better defining the role of the SRO and using this resource more strategically. I also like the idea of starting to build the relationship between kids and law enforcement much sooner. Elementary students love when the K-9 units come in and speak to them. My husband is a lieutenant with Washington County, and it aches his heart when he hears parents teaching their kids that LEOs are their enemy. I know these people well, and they love the community they serve. Thank you, Jennifer Weston, mother of 4. Number 3, I have kids in elementary, upper elementary, and high school, all in Forest Grove School District. I'm also a 2004 graduate of Forest Grove, and all my encounters with Officer Ferris at the time were great. I still tell stories to my kids of the positive impact he had on my life and also people close to me. Kevin Dowell. That's it.
Thank you, Dave. As always, we appreciate public comment coming to board meetings. So thanks for those. Thank you to those that submitted comment this evening. Onto the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Do a roll call vote. Narse? Maybe technical difficulties. Val?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so that passes. Thanks very much. Okay, next is we have one presentation this evening, and this is a follow-up to a conversation from the maybe it was the May 24th board meeting, and this is about the Neil Armstrong middle school class scheduling. This is I believe Juliana and Mr. Ted Zare are presenting this evening.
Yeah, and if I could just start it out, Mark, before we get there. The last time we were here, there were questions coming up kind of about what we are doing with scheduling, and two, kind of what the data was and what are some of the equitable thoughts around this. So Juliana and Christy and Ted have put together this with this presentation that kind of goes through what the data says, and then they're going to start talking about what they're working on and some of the information that they've found out about kind of what's best practice for schedules. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Juliana to kind of get us started.
Thank you. And I appreciate being back here to go through this presentation and hopefully answer your questions on the thoughts behind this. And I invited Christy here for two reasons. One, because she'll be my assistant principal next year, and she's been helping me look through this, but also she has 22 years of experience as a middle school language arts teacher. And she had a lot of questions about changing our schedule. And so her perspective, I think, is a really good one. And then, of course, Ted is here because he has a wealth of knowledge and experience through Hillsborough School District when they went through this transition as well to not have honors anymore. So I'm going to share my screen. And before I get started, just a little personal something. And it's funny because Oz is always telling me last year, he's like, share your story. And I'm like, I don't have a story. And he's like, everybody has a story. But the truth is, like, I don't like sharing my story. So, and he knew that about me, but I'll share a little bit. And that is, I was a kid who, my mom is Puerto Rican, and growing up, my dad worked full time, and my mom, because she valued her culture and her language, even though the doctors told her to only teach us English, she drove us across town to a bilingual school. And she was a great advocate for us as much as she tried. But I was a really quiet kid. I was going through a silent period where I was learning 2 languages. I was a terrible test taker, still am. And I had undiagnosed anxiety. And if I were in middle school right now, like, there's no way I would be put in honors. There's zero chance that anybody would have put me in honors. And when I went to high school, I went to Lincoln High School. They are known for their IB program, their AP program. I was never in those classes because I didn't know to check them. I didn't know to enroll for those classes or forecast for them. And I was told by the college counselors that I wouldn't get into the colleges I applied for. And same with my brother. And it turns out that I got into all 7 colleges I applied for. I got into Middlebury, which is a very rigorous school. My brother got into MIT. And so we had what it took. So we just didn't know to take those classes, and we didn't have people. My mom tried to advocate. I'll tell you what, she tried really hard. She's 4'9" and feisty, and not everybody would listen to her, and they would make comments about her accent. So anyway, so a personal story behind, like, one of the reasons I'm super passionate about this, because I really want to advocate for those kids who have what it takes to be doing honors level work, but might not know to take the class or might not test into it for whatever reason, especially with like our dual language kids who might not, they might be that high in Spanish, but not in English. So that on the side, little personal note why I'm passionate about it. We're looking at rigor for all, for NAMs. And I don't think it's a secret that, and I have data here, but that our test scores at NAMs are not great. And we need a boost. We need to work on our core. So I like to have the maxims here because this is what we're always coming back to. So here's some of the questions that you had at the last board meeting. And I'm not going to read every slide. I don't think I need to read all the slides, right? Because people can see this from home. Okay. So I'm going to try and go through all of these things along with some other notes that I took. And if other questions come up at the end, we can answer those. So belonging matters. These are a couple of quotes that come from, and I put all my resources on the very last slide here, and you'll have a copy of this in the minutes. This is from MTSS, Leading with an Equity Lens. I don't think that's what it's called. It's something like that. And this is what we're looking at as we pull all of our resources and look at MTSS as a district and look at our programs. So are there some students who are segregated based on label, race, funding source, discipline, or something else? And have we promoted equity in our access, engagement, and opportunity for each and every student? So that's what I'm looking at here, because, and it's not about like not having the kids who can advocate for their honors get honors. It's not about that. It's about making sure that all of our kids can access that level of work, not just our kids with honors. And I know there are questions about numbers that will be addressed. So here's our data dive, and I'm going to go fairly quickly through these slides. But you can see this is back in 17-18, and you'll notice there are numbers here and then demographics. The numbers are numbers of students in each group. So it could be, for example, if we're looking at this migrant column here, that some of these 23 students are repeat in other subject areas. So 16 students in US history, it could be that some of those kids also took honors English that year. And you'll notice this title honors changes to accelerated for language arts on future slides, because our language arts department really did try and change their practice. So it wasn't just student selected honors classes, it was also teacher selected looking at data. But what you can see down here with the demographics is that on this particular year, we had 56% Hispanic or Latino and 38% white. And you can see that the numbers represented here don't necessarily match. And you'll see that on all the slides. The other thing that I asked Brigitta to do for me, which by the way, Brigitta is amazing and she's very, very busy, and she whipped this data together for me so quickly. So I super appreciate her. But I purposely asked her to add in our ELL monitored and ELL prior. So our ELL monitored are kids who passed the ELPA or exited the program, and they're being monitored for a certain number of years. Right now it's 4 years. And ELL prior are kids who are no longer monitored. So that's the difference between those two. But those kids, this number looks okay, but it should be more than that. And same with current ELLs. Our high ELLs, the kids who are in our highest ELL classes, should be accessing honor level work. They can do that work, and they're not represented. And then I just think that the numbers of kids who have a special education qualification, that's crazy to me that there are so few kids, because you can have a special education disability in an area and still hit honors English. I totally believe that. So you'll have 3 slides in a row with data that are similar, just so you can have that as a resource. We don't have this year, obviously. And then SBAC, this is the historical SBAC data because we asked about that as well. And you can see for yourselves what these numbers look like here. But we've got some work to do. We've got some work to do across all boards here. Okay, so I have a couple of quotes through here. So this one, I'll just read it out loud. Equity in education demands each and every student in a community be invited, welcomed, and given a sense of belonging in a system of exceptional teaching and learning that is fluid, responsive, and dynamic, and that uses all available resources matched to each student's needs. So this is from an MTSS book also. And at the last board meeting, I started to talk a little bit about what we're going to do with advisory, but also our teachers are beginning to develop their lessons to match this so that kids get what they need at the level of rigor where they need it. So, and it's fluid, meaning like they're not stuck at one level or another the whole year. So if kids are now ready for honors level work, they can access it at any time. And then in our advisory time, we will look at our extension and intervention within advisory as well, which is just on Wednesdays right now, which leads us into the plan. So this long quote is from the AMLE website, which is the Association of Middle Level Education, I believe is the E. So this is from an article that talks about honors, and I really like how they talk about honors. So one of the questions that Valerie had last time was, what does this look like? Does it just mean that the kids who are ready for honors work have just more work or another assignment? And that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at different assignments that are more rigorous for those kids and for all of our kids to have access to those. I really like this part right here, that advanced courses should provide students an opportunity to learn something new every day, provide experiences for productive struggle, and invite students to engage authentically with content at deeper levels. That should be happening everywhere. And then in that same article, I loved this as a framework. What does honors stand for? I don't see anything on here that should just be in an honors class. Like this should be everywhere, right? Okay, so what we're looking at are lessons that are rigorous for all students, enhancement and intervention during class and advisory, which I spoke about. Last time I talked about smaller classes for ELA, so they will not teach electives. Instead, they'll have all of their kids dispersed throughout all of their 6 periods that they teach, so their class sizes will be smaller. We're going to strengthen our data teams, and I have a slide on that. We're going to get back into like a really tight data team cycle so that we can be looking at all of our kids with frequency. And then our district is rolling out MTSS, and we need to do it somewhat slowly so that we do it well. And when I have spoken with Cassie Kenny at the district level, she recommends that we start by looking at our data through Panorama. So when you're asking us about what data we're going to use, Panorama looks at behavior, academic, and test score data, among others. So we can really use that to look at our data, as well as the data teams will show our formative assessments and how kids are doing on those assessments. So within our data teams, these are the questions from Do For. What did students need to learn? How will we know when they've already learned it? And how will we respond when a student either has or has not learned it? And I think that's really important right there, is that have they learned it? And part of our data team is to make sure we have a pre-assessment. So if we have kids who already know their stuff, we don't need to teach that to them again and make them bored. What are we going to do instead? So we'll be looking at our common formative assessments. So that looks like teacher created assessments as a team and then in-program assessments. So for example, our Go Math has assessments and the Alex program also has assessments. Our progress monitoring tool, so in the district, we use STAR and IAP. IAP is an indicator for SBAC, and STAR has that as well. As STAR has more segregated data that you can look at to really fine tune what kids are missing and what they still need. And then of course, our summative assessments that can be unit assessments or SBAC. I put OAKS in there because of the science one is technically OAKS, and then the ALPA test. And in year one of MTSS, we're going to be looking at universal supports. So that includes our SEL rollout and academic and behavioral. We need to come together as a staff and build a common vocabulary around all of these things. And again, we're going to be using Panorama to look at our data. And of course, there's always the question about money. So most of this we're building right into our Late Start Wednesdays. It's going to happen through data teams. It's going to happen through our PD on Wednesdays. But also our teachers are jazzed about this. They're very excited and eager and want to do some scope and sequence work. And so we're going to blue timesheet them for some days this summer to work on this. And some of them have already started the work before the school year's out. That's it. So I do have some quotes from our staff because I know that some of the questions that came up were around whether or not how our staff feels about this. So I have a few quotes from our staff here. And I got permission from the staff members to put names on it. So Dr. Peters is one of our counselors. And she says, I am excited that we are going to focus on rigor for all next year. Honors classes created many scheduling restrictions, and students in honors were not always able to access our program electives. Now students who typically would be in honors will have unrestricted access to leadership, dual language classes, Spanish, performing arts, and AVID. As a counselor who oversees student scheduling, I'm hugely relieved and grateful for the opportunities that this change will provide students. The next one says, this year I changed how I assigned accelerated work. Instead of creating a separate doc, I added the extensions within assignments. This meant that every student was able to see the optional extensions and choose whether or not to complete them. There was a core group in some of my classes who I specifically talked to about needing to complete the extensions, but more students than I anticipated completed the extensions on many assignments. In prior years, these students may not have been in ALA, which is Accelerated Language Arts, and therefore wouldn't have necessarily even seen the advanced extensions. But because they were offered within assignments in a low stakes way, students were willing to rise to the challenge. I love that offering accelerated work this way made it so students were not tracked, and those who maybe wouldn't have applied for accelerated still accessed and excelled on ALA work. And that one is because this year we couldn't do honors because we had a 5-period day. So we didn't do honors this year. We had advanced math, but we didn't do honors in any of our other classes. So that was a teacher who already embedded it within her language arts. And then Ms. Lausma is a language arts teacher. She said, in my 7 years at NAMS, we have not created a system for placing students in honors courses that results in honors classes that actually reflect our school population. Students do not learn to respect, value, and treat their peers as equals when they're kept separate from each other in the school day. With honors classes, students are robbed of valuable interactions with fellow students whose linguistic, cultural, socioeconomic, and racial backgrounds differ from their own. We can't say that FGSD values equity if we continue this inequitable practice. So that's the end. But as I'm finishing up, I meant to mention also, I've had some questions about TAG. And our TAG students, we have about 20 TAG students per grade level, and we will be grouping TAG students together in classes so that they can get extension beyond what we would offer. And that's separate from the honors conversation. I think those are all the things, unless Ted or Christy have additional comments, which they might, because I went pretty quick.
I think I would just add that when Juliana first sent an email saying we think we're going to cut honors, I believe I can quote myself as saying, I respectfully and wholeheartedly disagree. That was my knee-jerk instant reaction because it's what has been. And then I dug into the book that Mr. Garcia posted in the chat and that Juliana referenced with Leading Equity-Based MTSS for All Students. And what I realized, not only in my own practice, but I think in NAMS as a whole, is that we need to focus on building our universal supports so that we are providing the rigorous education that every child who goes through FGSD deserves. And I think that one thing that was impressed upon me was that when I interviewed for the position for next year for assistant principal, I said, I believe NAMS is on a path to greatness. And then I repeated that quote in the what do you call that, the press release, because I really truly believe that NAMS is on a path to greatness. But I don't just want 6% of our students on that path. And with the honors program, that's what we do. We take 6%-ish, or 1/6. I'm sorry, 1/6. This is why I don't teach math. We take 1/6 of our students and we provide them greatness and that path to greatness. And for me, fundamentally, every student in our school deserves a path to greatness. And we do have an ELA team that is eager to provide that to all students. We've talked about the fact that we build rigorous curriculum and then we scaffold, thank you, Mr. Garcia, 17%, 1/6. And so, you know, we've spent 2 of our previous department meetings talking about this challenge with a little bit of nervousness, absolutely, because any change creates a little bit of nervousness, but at the same time, there is excitement. And that's the power of the staff at NAMS. They are excited about the opportunity to serve all students at a rigorous level. So those are just my additional thoughts, Juliana.
Thanks, Christy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody's faces.
So questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and comments. You put up a slide about equity. And the first thought I had was that we're providing workshop classes for some students to help them because they're at that level. So would it not be equitable to provide classes for students who are achieving at higher levels?
So I have a question, maybe. Okay, so here's my thought on that, because the kids who get workshop also get a core class. So it actually, that takes away from their elective. So would that mean then that our honors kids would get regular language arts and then honors instead of an elective?
Yeah, if they wanted. Right? I mean, so it's not what I just don't think you guys keep using equity as a word and your philosophy about this, but it's just not quite, it isn't equitable for the kids that are higher level.
Yeah, so I would jump here and I would say the FTE that we're providing those support classes is actually intervention. It's paid for out of an ESSER fund. It's because we don't believe it's going to stay. It's going away. Currently, because of the level, our current level of math at NAMS, we pushed in this ESSER funds to support this, but it isn't a long-term goal for us. Those are going to go away because of we don't believe that they should need that. We need to have a rigorous math instruction and kids need to be learning in that main class. So I don't think that exactly fits, at least in my mind, respectfully.
Another comment. you had a quote from Ms. Lausma talking about different socioeconomic and cultural groupings. But then you also said that you're keeping the tag students together. So isn't that kind of like having an honors group?
No, there's a thing called cluster grouping, and it's actually best practice with tag, which is what they want you to do with tag is basically schedule into regular classes, but cluster groups of around 6 students. That's where they find they actually, the kids kind of, I'll have to go get the research report on this, but actually that is a best practice for tag, is to what they call cluster group schedule them.
Another question is, how are the teachers going to have to be doing more work? So if you have 5 kids that are going to need a little bit more work, do they have to have different assignments to challenge them a little bit more? Then are they grading that? And are you not grouping those kids together either? Right? They would all be spread out. So I might have 3 in one class, and then I might have 5 in another class, and I might have to give 2 of those 5 different assignments to challenge them more. Like how is the teacher going to do that and then also be teaching to 28 kids?
Christy, did you want to answer that based on what you're starting to work with the ELA team on?
Absolutely. So it's about going back to the basic design of how we are creating our lessons. And so rather than building something that is for one set of students, we build for the high and we scaffold down. And so that the assignment within it, the one assignment, and this is what our 7th grade language arts team this year, which I honestly am not on that team, but I've witnessed the development of this year with great pride. They have done an amazing job this year of integrating and redesigning curriculum. And that's what it's about. It's a mindset change. But it's not more work, just like it's not more work for the students. It's different work. It is different work for the teacher, but it won't be more work. Will it be potentially on the onset? Yeah, that's why we need our blue timesheet couple of days. And ELA actually asked for that before we even knew for sure that this was a set in stone schedule proposal. But it's what it takes at the beginning, like switching to hybrid, took a couple days to let's shift our mind and get into the new game. That's what it is. And then once you start to develop your curriculum in that manner, it becomes essentially second nature. I don't know if that answers your question, but I do know that our 7th grade ELA team has already done this. And they're just looking forward to having the time to make it through all of our scope and sequence and develop it all the way through.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand. So you're saying it's different work. So I might be doing one set of work and my friend is doing different work, but that doesn't create more work for a teacher.
So I think I can best give you an example of a nonfiction unit, for example. And I'm sorry that I can't speak to the science or the social studies, but I can use language arts because that's my strong suit. We have access to leveled texts. So I can pull an advanced honors high school level text that is on a certain topic. From the same source, I can get, this would be News ELA, I can get a text that has the exact same topic, but scaled vocabulary to grade level. And from that exact same source, I can get the below grade level. So there is no extra work other than click to adjust the text. And so I guess, are there extra clicks for sometimes? Sure. But again, it sounds so challenging on the onset because it's different. But once you get into this kind of work, it becomes second nature, just like, for example, and I just spit, so I apologize. just like it becomes second nature for us to modify our assignments for students who are below grade level that are in our regular education classes. We have some students that are reading and writing at second and third grade level. We have to have an ability to differentiate there. And that becomes, as you do that work, second nature. And so will this.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to end with a couple of things. Some of you might be wondering, why I sound so passionate about this and why I have so many questions. My daughters both went to Neil Armstrong and were both in the honors classes. And the feedback I have gotten from them is that it wasn't challenging at all. From a parent's perspective, they never came home with any homework. They just weren't challenged. I don't feel like it prepared them at all for the high school or the honors classes there. And if that was an honors class, I mean, and this is probably where you guys are coming from with the whole thing. If that's an honors class not preparing them, I mean, what's happening in the other classes, right? So I'm excited that you guys are trying to add the rigor and increase it and make it for everybody. I really hope you succeed at it, and I really hope you do it because our students need it. They need to be challenged. They need to prepare for this. And as a final note, I would have been a lot happier if you just spun this like we're changing every class to an honors class. Every expectation we had for the honors class is what we're going to have for everybody instead of, the reverse. But thanks for the presentation.
I appreciate that. And I have to say, we don't disagree that the rigor needs to be bumped up. So we're in agreement there. And I also don't mind the questions because it makes me really think about is this the right thing or not? And so I don't mind all of the questions that you all have. So keep them coming.
I have a couple questions. When Dave was talking about the tag cluster, how does that work in a day at your school? What does that look like?
So we have awesome counselors who do all of that. Just for transparency. But so are you talking about what their schedule would look like in a day?
To know how do those kids get together? Are they being pulled out of class? I mean, just give me an example of how that's going to work.
Yes, I got it. Okay, so what we have in our Synergy system is we have little icons at the top that will show if a kid has modified work because of a IEP or a 504, and then tag is one of those as well. And Avid, there are a whole bunch of them. So what our counselor will do is not a pullout, but our teachers are aware of it. And so they know, okay, so I have a cluster of tag students in here. I'm going to need to do something a little bit more for those kiddos.
So when Dave said, 5 or 6 or 7 kids, that's per classroom. And then, it's not a pullout and it's not doing anything other than accelerating where they're at academically.
Well, it's also providing that accelerated mindset. So, and we have to remember that if we have 20 tag students at 7th grade level, some of those are identified tag in math, some of those are identified tag in reading, and some are identified tag intellectually gifted. And so it's basically cluster grouping based on that tag identification.
Okay. I will say that I think having only 20 students, or is it 40 students total in a building, seems to be low.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it seems to me. One of the things that I would like, and I don't know if this is okay or not, but I would like after the first trimester to see the data of how the kids are doing in reading and math. What's happening, it's not on your shoulders, it's on all our shoulders, but not last year, but the year before. The math and the reading scores were really just so disappointing. And so I think getting after the first trimester some data on, are we on the right track here? Are we doing what? And I know you will do that within the school, but as board members, we're also very interested in, and do we need to provide more money? What do we need to do to make sure these kids are on track because the percentages were really not good, for, I don't know, 2 years ago or a year ago. It wasn't last year, it was the year before.
Yeah.
And anyway, thank you. I'm excited for your team and for, the presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing good things. Thank you.
Thank you. We are excited too, and I appreciate those comments. And we'll have data, but also change takes time. So just be patient with us, but we'll show up. Narcissus had her hand up for a while, I think.
Go ahead, Narce.
Thank you. Thank you, Juliana and Christy, for your vision towards this initiative. I do agree with Kate. I know that change takes time. And so I have a couple of questions. One is, and you might have said this, so I apologize. Is this type of model that's being viewed and implemented with what you've all shared? Are there other models like this nationwide, district-wide that, so it's more like we're doing, so that's one question. So I'll stop and then I'll answer my other questions. Ask the other questions, excuse me.
I wonder if Ted might speak on that a little bit with his experience in Hillsborough.
As far as honors classes, Hillsborough at the middle school level does not have any for the language arts, so-called honors English. I did some research around Beaverton. I couldn't see what their middle schools had, but each of their high schools have just freshman English for just freshmen. It says all freshmen take English, whether you're at the IB schools of Sunset, Mountainside, or what's the other one? IB, it was Southridge. And then if you're in the AP's class schools, whether it's Westview or Beaverton High School, they are just freshman English. They don't start an honors type class until at the IB schools like Sunset till your junior year. You have to ask teacher permission for the sophomore level at Sunset High School. And then Banks, a school to your west, has when I looked at their schedule, just 8th grade English and 7th grade English. They didn't have a separated course either. So those are just in the local areas. And then another school is Sherwood. At their high school, just freshman English is where they start. So all kids were starting at the same level based on what I saw from the beginning of this school year in the local area.
Thank you. My next question is the following, and it's also just based on having had daughters in the school district, and then also just being, prior to my role as a board member, just being an advocate for Latinx parents and community members. What does the transition look like for our students coming out of 8th grade into the high school? In particular, for those that want to take honors or AP courses, what does that educational look like for the students and for the parents? I'm curious about what that bridge is going to look like, in particular for parents that obviously have an interest in their children continuing on to higher ed and to be as prepared as possible for university and college work. I can share very quickly my experience with, in particular, one daughter who straight A, pretty much daughter AB from K through 12, but it was a struggle to advocate for her transitioning from 8th grade to the high school, where the high school counselors were giving her the easiest courses possible and not necessarily the honors or the AP courses. My husband and I wanted to make sure that it was not based on implicit bias, but our theory proved that it was based on implicit bias by the counselor in regards to seeing a brown face and a brown girl and what girls should be taking or not taking. My husband and I were always very diplomatic and took the high road and modeled for our daughter, as we met with a counselor, that that she was material for advanced work and honors roll. And that story repeated itself among the Latino population. We asked the counselor a very basic question. Do you have children? He said, yes. He was very proud of his own daughters. And I asked, what did you do to prepare your daughter? He said, to take AP and honors courses. I said, so why are you limiting our daughters to take these courses? So let her prove herself. We did that so our daughter could continue to advocate for herself. She's actually right now just, because I do believe in Forest Grove and I do believe in professional development and all of that for our faculty, for our teachers. She's studying to be a teacher. Started her master's program on Saturday and will be doing her teaching work. And so I think she said in Hillsborough, she's going to be working under Miss Aguilar, So I share all of that because I was having technical issues logging in, but I did hear a couple of testimonies about critical race theory. I think the CRT, and I think that's what this is all about at the end of the conversation, at the end of this journey, is that if we don't change policies and procedures, also within the system, within the transition from 8th grade to the high school, then we're going to end up getting the same results because we're still going to have unintentional, implicit bias kick in, and our brown kids are going to be treated the same. If they don't know how to advocate, we're going to continue not having that sense of belonging for them to be able to do that rigorous work. I just happen to be, Juliana, like your mother, a very feisty person. So I'm just sharing all of that because of that. The other thing that I'm curious about, you had mentioned, Juliana, the data teams. So like Val, I was thinking, okay, who are the data teams exactly? And is this putting more work on the data team people, and who are they? And like, Kate, do we need more money to be able to come up with that data team? Because that's a lot of work to be able to be assembling all that data. So those are my observations and my question. And I also hope that this program, and I believe that with your leadership, it'll work, but it probably is going to have to be tweaked here and there. And there's probably going to be upset parents too. So how are we going to manage all that? So that's my 2 cents.
So let me start with the transition to high school piece, and I'll let Juliana talk about the data teams. So there's a lot of work been going on over the last 3 years regarding how do we, one, begin to provide support for kids so that they can move up, so that they can extend themselves. And that's basically the whole premise of the AVID program, is basically to find those kids who are in the middle and provide them the support so they can take the advanced placement courses. But along with AVID, which we continue to build in the school, you also have the leadership programs. They've now got the Juntos program, and then a leadership program that we're just starting this year called Latinos in Action, that is basically getting started to take and provide opportunities for students. There's a community service portion of it, but there's also another big push just to expose kids to what's their next step. So there's actually quite a bit of work going on there. As we've hired in, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, the extra counselors. The idea here would be to get them away from kind of reactive services and more towards these proactive services that you're talking about, Narcea, of actually working with kids and parents to counsel them. What's your next step? What would you like to, what do you need to be working on? If we can get the counseling at younger grades, freshmen, sophomore, so that they're taking courses that make more sense. So we actually have quite a bit of work going on as far as trying to transition and get kids to take more rigorous materials. So that's that part of it. I'll let Juliana kind of answer the data team part of this and Dufours and all of the logic behind that.
Yeah, so as much as I want to take all your money, I'm not sad if you want to give me money. Data teams are just a part of great teaching, really, and we embed it in our late start. So we meet as departments for data teams. And so what teachers will do on their cycle is that the first time they'll meet and discuss what's the standard they're going to teach and how are they going to assess it. And then kids get a pre-assessment. You find out who already knows the pieces on the assessment, who doesn't know, like what needs to be filled in. And then there's a plan. So then the kids take the test and you can analyze that data. And then from there, you decide what are the instructional strategies, which kids need the extension, which kids need intervention, and everything in between. And so this happens every couple of weeks. We meet specifically on this. And then there's a post test to see how it went. So it's just right within our departments and happens during our late start. So it's not any added time necessarily, and it doesn't necessarily need extra funding.
Of it is it that it creates that community togetherness of building the extensions and scaffolding down, so that one teacher isn't developing all of that solo. The team is strategizing, what do we do for the students who meet? What do we do for the students who are almost there? And so on and so forth. So that's kind of the beauty of sharing the workload via collaboration.
Parker, Dr. David Parker, I have one more thought. And it doesn't have to be answered right now. And I know you told me you're not a doctor, but sorry, it's just out of respect. So I know Brad's going, Narcy. It's just what happens. It's a cultural thing. Dr. Buffaro. So anyway, just kidding. So here's my my thought. I'm just planting a seed. Dave, as you had mentioned, all the amazing work that is happening when our kids transition to the high school, the Juntos and, the Avid, and, I don't know if we'll get Trio and all the other programs. Don't have to answer it now, but I'm just wondering eventually if we can talk about this later and have it be an agenda item on how is that all going to be packaged at the high school? Because everybody gets busy with the 5 different programs. But is it actually going to be working for the kids, right? Because it's like different bridges that don't go to the same road. I've seen that over and over in my career. So is that a position that we have on the retention specialist or whatever, the miracle worker, whatever? So just putting that seed there for a future conversation.
No, I think that's a good idea. And I know I had some questions about what do we do for making sure that all kids are doing FAFSA and when do we meet with them and all of those. So why don't I have all talk with the high school about coming back to present to the board kind of how this is all coming together.
I have one more question. I wanted to ask about the reading scores were so low at 25% 2 years ago. How are you going to teach? I mean, I know you have language arts, but if you have kids that are 2 years behind or 4 years behind, how are you explicitly going to teach to catch those kids up?
I'm not sure the reading scores for SBAC. I believe we're at 54%. So math was 26, reading was 12% higher. Yeah, I think that 2 years ago we hit 54% or 53, and the previous year we were a couple points in that range. For a few years, we've been floating in the 53 to 56% with SBAC ELA at the middle school. So your question is, how will we bring those lower level students up? Is that correct? So that's part of bringing that rigor for all. Instead of just designing curriculum that is for an average, we are going to build for rigor and scaffold so that all students can attain a rigorous education. And that means that, yes, building in supports, that's part of the MTSS process, is looking at what are our universal supports that we have for all students, and then what intensified supports can we build. And I believe Juliana mentioned that advisory is one place where we can do that. And I will actually let her carry from there. But I just wanted to make sure that reading was between 53, 56% the last few years, minus last year, which we just don't even talk about last year. So it's fine.
Yes, last year was a weird year. Well, we will do some things during advisory, but yes, it will definitely be built in, and kids rise to high expectations. They totally do. And we've seen it. And if they're in need of some of those fluency skills, we'll build that in. We'll build in time for them to practice that.
I'll probably just say right now, Juliana technically isn't even on the job yet. So I think our conversation today was kind of why are we thinking about the honors? I do think there's some really great conversations for us to have and for them to bring back a plan for us of how we're going to, I know the board is concerned about, I'm concerned about the reading scores, the math scores, science. I think, but I want to give them a chance to kind of put together some of that thinking and maybe bring back to us kind of after talking with their staff. They haven't really even had a chance to meet with their staff around some of these issues yet. So I don't want to get them too deep into the promises yet until they have a chance to kind of meet on that. If you don't mind, I'm sure they would be happy to come back and talk a little bit more, maybe early in the fall.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I got, into the details, but I do think that Danielle, that's at the high school, and I support her when she says that we have to be teaching K through 12 reading. And if those kids did not get those explicit phonics pieces, every teacher needs to be teaching reading. It's just not, including in math and science, etc. We really have to focus on that. So that's my last comment.
So I would say, I'm going to make just a few comments. I know we've been on this for a while, but so when Christy spoke and she said, when they said honors is going away, I mean, I'm kind of an honors person. I taught years and years ago at Forest Grove High School honors science, and when I was at Banks, I advocated for honors programs there. So I'm kind of an honors person. And when I look at it, I look at the course outline for the high school. I think I counted 62 honors or AP or dual credit classes at the high school. And I think about this for any student who wants to take honors. I mean, it doesn't matter. In fact, I would self-select, allow students to self-select into the course. One of the things that we had when I came to Banks was that teachers were assigned, checking off that kids could go to honors classes. We did away with that. And so students self-select. If you want to try the course, you can try the course. So I'm a little nervous about how this rigor is going to play out. I mean, I've taught honors courses, I've taught regular courses many, many years ago, and it's challenging to meet the needs of all of those abilities in a mixed ability classroom. It's very, very challenging. And so I'm concerned about the rigor, and it's been mentioned, you've mentioned it. I mean, everybody's mentioned it today. And so I'm very concerned about the level of rigor. And I'm going to throw one thing in here as well, which is, timelines and grading policies. I think currently the timelines and testing policies don't instill student academic responsibility. And so I'm going to throw that in there as well. And so, and that's not a 7-8 issue, that's a 7-12 issue. So, I'm concerned. I mean, I understand. I can, we can cite research that you shouldn't have honors classes, but we could also cite research that says you shouldn't limit class sizes. And we don't follow that here. And so I'm just going to throw that out there. And I'm hoping that what you've described is going to work, and we'll be watching closely. So that's my comments. So, and I think with that, unless anybody
Brad's raising his hand.
Okay, Brad.
I don't have that long a comment, but as Mark, but I would just say, I've seen things. I've been in the district for 38 years. I've seen things come and go, and people get excited, then they don't, then they're not excited. I would only suggest that data teams have been a part of what we've done for a long time in this district. But as a leader, I would have kind of the end in mind about what you would think would be successful implementation of the changes in the next 2 to 3 years. Sometimes we start a change process like this without a clear idea where we want to end up. And I would say that, yeah, test scores, those are obvious benchmarks, but what are the other areas that you want to see? And maybe make sure that you've outlined those areas so that you can determine whether you're making progress or not. You know, Mark and I have talked about honors, and it's been a big part of Forest Grove High School over the years, but I would say as a past administrator, just be clear about what success looks like and about where you want to be for kids, so that you can articulate with that with your staff. And then I'm going to leave it at that. So, but you did a good job tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Before
Go
there was
ahead.
one thing said there, Mark, that I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Because we are not suggesting that we not do honors at the high school level.
I know.
We're not making any suggestion like that. What we're saying is the Association of Middle Level Educators puts out a best practices for middle schools, and honors would not be on that best practice. That's all that we're trying to say here.
Well, and I understand that, Dave, but when I look across the country, I do see honors courses in other middle schools. And so as with most research, there's some that follow and some that don't, right? And they make local decisions about that stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Right. Okay. With that, I think we'll move on in the agenda here, if I can get it up here. Let's see. Okay. Thanks very much for the presentation. Okay, we have 10 action items this evening. So we'll start. The first one is the 2021-22 budget adoption. And I believe Eileen is presenting that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we have for you the 21-22 budget document as approved by our budget committee in May. Annually, the board is required to adopt the budget and appropriations prior to July 1st. So tonight we have for you 3 resolutions. One is to adopt the budget. One is to make the appropriations. And then the last one is to impose and categorize the tax. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't think there's any questions. Thanks very much, Eileen.
Thank you.
Mark, do you have all those motions in front of you?
I do. So there's gonna be 3. I'll read one, and then the way it'll go, I'll read one, we'll have a motion, and then we'll have a second, and then we'll vote on that, and we'll do that for all 3. So here's the first one. This is the resolution adopting the budget. Be it resolved that the Board of Forest Grove School District hereby adopts the budget for fiscal year 2021-22 in the total amount of $130,297,767. This budget is now on file at the Forest Grove School District located at 1728 Main Street in Forest Grove, Oregon. So that is what I'd like to throw out there. Is there a motion on that?
Can I say so moved?
Yes.
And I'll say
right.
second.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll do a verbal vote here. I'm a yes. Narce,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and Brad.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is the second item under the budget. This is a resolution imposing the tax. Be it resolved that the following ad valorem property taxes are hereby imposed upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district for tax year 2021 and 2022 at the rate of $4,914. Or it's like
Mark?
4,000. Yes, am I reading?
Sorry
it
to interrupt. The one making appropriations is the appropriations by like the general fund special revenue. I think the title and the resolution are getting combined right now.
Okay, I'm missing the resolution making the appropriations then? That's the-
Yes.
Okay, sorry. That's right, I went down too far. Be it, so this is the resolution making appropriations. Be it resolved that the amounts shown below are hereby appropriated for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 for the following purposes. And the document is online. It outlines the areas, the general fund, capital projects, special revenue funds, etc. So that's online. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
And moved and seconded. So we'll do a vote. I'm a yes. Val,
Yes.
Kate,
yes.
Narcisse,
Yes.
and Brad.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's the second one. Now I think we're going to combine these two. Back up and look here. Okay. Yes, okay. So this is a resolution imposing the tax. Be it resolved that the following ad valorem property taxes are hereby imposed upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district for tax year 2021-22. And the rates are, I think it's 4,914 per 100 or per thousand of assessed value. And in the amount of $6,757,413 for debt service on general obligation bonds. That's one. And the second one is resolution categorizing the tax. Be it resolved that the taxes imposed are hereby categorized for purposes of Article 11, Section 1(b) as subject to the education limitation permanent rate tax for 4,914 per thousand excluded. Yes.
It's 4.9142.
Oh,
Sorry, Mark.
Okay, 4.91. Okay,
Thank you.
my glasses are bad. 4.9142 per thousand. I couldn't figure out why all those numbers were there if it was okay. Excluded from limitation, general obligation bond debt service of $6,757,413. So those are two resolutions. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second, okay. So we'll do a verbal vote here. Narcisse,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes, Mark.
and I'm a yes. So thank you very much. We are now on to item number 2, the 2020-2021 Viking House sale. And this is, I think, Eileen.
Yeah, thank you. So tonight we have the 2020-2021 Viking House sale. The house was placed on the market on June 3rd, and on Monday, June 7th, we looked at any offers that had come in over the weekend. We did have 2 offers. One was for $628,000 and one was for $625,000, which is well above the asking price of $595,000 for the house. So tonight, what we have is recommending to the board to approve the sale of the 2020-2021 Viking House at $628,000.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on
Sure.
that?
I'll make a motion that the board of directors approves the sale of the 2020-2021 Viking House for $628,000.
Second.
Okay, let's say seconded. Okay. So we'll do a vote. Brad,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Narcisse,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes. Thanks. On to the item number 3. This is Fidelity Insurance. And Eileen, it looks like you again.
Thank you. So tonight we have the follow-up of the conversation from last month on the Fidelity Insurance. This is covering primarily employee fraud, and our current insurance policy is $1 million. we did work with Alicia at WSC Assured Partners on seeing what other opportunities are to increase that coverage. The other option that we have is to increase the $1 million with another layer from Travelers Insurance of an additional $1 million. For $3,000, it's about $3,552 a year. So at this time, just getting the board's approval on whether you would like $1 million coverage or if you would like us to purchase the secondary $1 million on the Fidelity Insurance.
What do you recommend?
Yeah, go ahead.
Most other districts only have up to the $1 million coverage. They don't have a secondary policy. This doesn't include and doesn't cover any cyber issues or cyber things that happen. So it's primarily just employee fraud. The $1 million is pretty consistent on what I'm seeing in other places. So it's really about what your comfort level is on whether we have $1 million or if we layer it with a second $1 million.
So Eileen, this doesn't have anything to do with cyber.
No.
So it's just employee fraud.
Correct.
So it's an employee embezzling money from an account, et cetera. That's it.
Right.
And if it was over $1 million, Eileen, then we would be
we would be liable for the difference.
We would be out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And what you're saying is that most districts are at $1 million. I feel comfortable with $1 million if it's just employee fraud.
Yeah.
What I was thinking that it was also cyber attacks and those kinds of things. So as one board member, I would feel comfortable with $1 million to stay in line with what other districts are doing.
I feel comfortable with that, but Eileen, what about cyber? Is that a whole separate insurance issue that we would need to cover ourselves?
Correct. Right now, we're working with Alicia at Assured Partners and PACE on our cyber liability insurance. PACE only has, it's $1 million policy that we could get with them, and they only have $1 million aggregate. So for cyber, within the whole PACE structure, so that's school districts, community partners, and other government entities that they cover, they have a $5 million coverage limit total for the year. So once they exhaust that, then our cyber insurance is no longer for that year because it's under that whole PACE umbrella. We've been working with Alicia over the last few weeks, both Enrique and I, on trying to find alternative cyber coverage and see what we can do to have additional policies layered on top of that one. She's still getting us quotes, but that is another conversation that we still have to have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen.
So if we stay at $1 million, there's no real motion tonight then.
I would still need a motion for our auditors because they would request that the board review our fidelity coverage.
Okay.
So I would move that we stay at $1 million as at our current rate.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. So I'm a yes. Brad,
Yes.
Narcy,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Val.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay, on to number 4, Microsoft licensing renewal. And this is Enrique Pino.
Thank you, Chair Everett. Today, the action item before you is to approve the renewal of our Microsoft licensing, which we have to do each year. So the renewal of our licensing with Microsoft basically covers our licenses for operating systems, for Office Suite, for client access licenses, and security suite licenses, like for the antivirus software that runs on our computers. We go through the Organization for Educational Technology and Curriculum, which is OETC. They have a contract RFP that they put out with Microsoft, which is the sole provider for the renewal of our agreement with them. And our renewal is for $51,863.17, which covers us for the 2021-2022 school year. The funding source will be through the general fund. So our recommendation is for the board to approve the purchase of our licensing renewal with Microsoft for 21-22 from the OETC through their contract.
Enrique, is this part of your current budget?
Yes, this is part of our current budget.
Thank you.
Thanks, Enrique. Any other questions for Enrique? Okay, I'll move that we approve the Microsoft licensing renewal for 2020-2021.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
We just need to say for 21-22. Is that what you said, or did you say 2021?
21-22. Yeah.
Okay, we'll second that.
21-22. Okay. Let's see. Do a vote. Val?
Yes.
Narce?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thanks, Enrique.
Thank you.
Let's see, this is the next item is CIMA contract for 2020-2021, and this is a revision from Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. We are requesting the board approve revised MOU for the 2021 school year. Originally, it was approved for $80,000. However, due to increased amount of translation interpretation needs required during comprehensive distance learning and for hybrid thus far this year, the actual amount needed for these services exceeded the amount approved. We are requesting the board approval for an additional $30,000 for translation and interpretation needs from CIMA for the remainder of the school year.
Okay. Comments or questions? All right. I'll move that we approve the CIMA contract revision for 2020-2021.
In the amount of $30,000, and I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, moved and seconded, so I will be a yes vote. Narce?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
One more here. It's a CIMA contract for the next school year, 2021-22. So.
Yes, Board Chair. We are requesting a board approval of $100,000 per the attached MOU for translation interpretation services for the 21-22 school year. Services provided include translation for school events, parent conferences, and other school curricular needs. The district has worked with CIMA since 2006.
So my only question, John, is it looks like for next year we've anticipated additional costs, right? And so we've bumped it up 20, because last year was 80 and right at the start of the year, and this year we're going for 100 right out of the chute. Is that, do you think that, any sense of whether that'll be enough, or you probably don't know? Huh?
I hope so.
Okay.
I truly do.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. What do other school districts do? I'm familiar with CIMA because, you know, where I work, we also contract out, but the highest notice need is a district. Is it, would it behoove us to have our own person?
That's a great question, Narce, and we've talked about that over the years. In fact, you know, having served as interim principal this spring for Tom McCall, it was all hands on deck. So we have a lot of bilingual staff that can help with translation services. However, like our registrar, our bilingual registrar, Malinka, was assigned to a classroom after she got the office duties up and running to help a teacher with as a classroom instructional aid. And then when we got done with hybrid, she'd come back. And that was true with so many of our staff members. So it really limited the number of hours that our bilingual staff who have a very high developed skill set for translation services, we're providing immediate direct services to teachers and students in the classroom, during the learning. So the long way around your answer is we've talked about it, but Dave Parker has, he's really good with numbers, and he's looked at how much that could buy. And it's go ahead, Dave. I don't mean to speak for you.
The biggest problem that we have is that what this buys us is access to lots of people. If we spent $100,000 on either 2 translators, it still just gives us 2. And the thing that SEMA, by contracting with them, most of the time we can handle the translation on our own, but it's at conferences, IEPs, where they can deliver multiple people at once that we seem to have the biggest problem, because we have looked at if we could build this the expertise inside our district, it would be valuable. It's just that this still serves a purpose for us because we can get more people during specific times of the year.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, good question. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move that we approve the SEMA contract for 2021, 2022 in the amount of $100,000.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. I'm a yes. Val?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Narcy?
Yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thanks. Okay, John, again, this is you. This is create contract for 2021, 22.
Yes, sir. So as you know, CREATE's a long-time alternative education program that serves up to 33 students per year. We have 32 students that are enrolled currently. Most of the students served are of high school age, and currently right now 100% are. However, up to 8 slots traditionally are reserved for middle school students that are in need of a temporary educational placement, as determined by the middle school administration team. CREATE provides a valuable alternative resource, and it is now housed in Forest Grove. And as we pivot to back to in-person this fall, they will also partner with Cornelius City Library to offer services at that location as well. So students are served by this program are our district's most at-risk student populations and have been unsuccessful at the comprehensive middle school and high school programs and have typically exhausted other alternative learning options at the high school level. So they operate on a 1-year contract. That's why it's before you this evening. And they do have 1 student from Banks, and they had 1 student from Gaston for much of this year. But we did get notice from Oregon Department of Education that we needed to conduct a site visit. A lot of the site visits throughout the state were done online. The high school principal and myself went there June 8th, and we visited their new location over by the Forest Grove Aquatic Center. And we had a great conversation with Olivia Alcare, our executive director of CREATE Services. And I'm pleased to report, with the most challenging year I've ever seen for our most at-risk students, we did have a graduate from the CREATE program who walked and participated in the graduation ceremony this year. So that was a shining moment for the program. But we look forward to getting back to in-person services, because that's where the real connection is, in person, with a very low staff to student ratio. And I just want to take a moment to commend Olivia Alcare and her entire team for working under the most extreme circumstances and trying to keep the kids involved. The barriers this year, obviously online learning environment and also high employment opportunities for our students this year. So it was very challenging to keep kids engaged, to say the least. But we come before you tonight for another year extension, and the CREATE contract for the 2021-22 school year is before you this evening.
Okay, John, the rate is the same, the 80%. So that hasn't changed. I mean, I'm looking at it, so that's always been the, okay. Thanks. Narce, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what John was talking about the great work that I think Olivia is delivering and doing. And the advocacy she does for the students, whether they succeed or not, on how well she connects them with other nonprofit organizations. So she's very well known in our community for doing that work. And she speaks very highly of district as well, Forest Grove School District. I just want to confirm, John, are they housed in the house in, is it Bienestar or where are they housed exactly?
Thank you. Yes, Bienestar is where one of them is housed, and then the other one, the name I'm sorry, escapes me. It's right across from the Safeway parking lot. It's an apartment complex, and these are really nice facilities. The one across from Safeway is smaller, more intimate, but you've got to see the other one over by the city pool. It's very big, very nice, great technology. And the high school helped them with 20 Chromebooks this year. And we're gonna allow them to keep them this fall for use to see how we transition back to in-person.
It's called the, John, it's the Jose Arciaga. It's
Thank
also
you.
a low housing income right across Safeway.
Yes.
So that's also another great partnership with the nonprofit on providing that space, which is really nice because the parents are right then and there. So the kids are not wandering off. They're actually in these particular facilities. So just wanted to say thank you for doing that great work along with Olivia.
Oh, our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the 2021-2022 CREATE contract as presented.
I'll second that. So moved and seconded. Narce,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
yes, and Brad.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, let's see, we're on to action item number 8. This is Odysseyware 2021-2022 subscription. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. So this is an annual item that we bring to you. The subscription price is $71,000 for Odysseyware contract, plus an additional $10,000 for summer school. Requires that it's approved annually by our school board. Staff at Neil Armstrong Middle School, Forest Grove High School, Community Alternative Learning Center, and CREATE all utilize this software to some extent to award credit. While there are other online vendors available, Odysseyware has been highly regarded by teachers and our local online curriculum and allows it to be modified using the software to meet our own essential standards for granting credits. Teachers, parents, students, and administrators are familiar with the software, and this has been a vital component to our online programming, especially during recent distance learning requirements. Our entire 712 online program utilizes this software with a high degree of experience and efficacy. This online software curriculum is also very affordable compared to other vendors. Furthermore, with Odyssey, where we have 24/7 access for up to 100 students at any given time, which significantly reduces the cost and maximizes resources. We also have 50 additional licenses for summer school. So you might be looking at this and saying, wait a minute, this is the same, $10,000 for summer school. Why isn't it going up significantly? Well, we had this conversation with Brian and Karen at the high school, and we're going to have, thanks to the summer academic supports sponsored by the state this year, that gave us over $1 million. We're going to have multiple avenues, Odyssey being the backbone to much of it, but we're also going to have in-person classroom instruction, in addition to live teaching of specific courses during the summer. Again, that $1 million helps us with achieving these outcomes. So that was my number one question. Why isn't it a lot more for that 10,000? We think that will suffice for this summer.
John, I was wondering why the quote is different than what the agenda item is asking for.
I'm not sure.
The quote says 75,500 is what I'm seeing on my packet. And you're asking for 81 total.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wrote up 71,000 plus $10,000 for summer school.
So it should be 85,000 or it should be 81,000. 81,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the quote should say?
What?
That's what the quote should say?
So the quote says, John, 75,000. Is which one's correct?
I'm not sure. Eileen, if you can pop in for a second. Thank you. I know, I'm sorry. I put her on the spot. She's like, John, are you serious? I apologize.
John, I haven't been part of this contract.
Yeah, I would say we need 81,000. But again, I'm not sure why there's a disparity.
So I'm wondering if we can wait till the next board meeting.
I think we can.
Okay, let's do that.
I'm going to suggest we do.
Yeah.
John, did they give a separate quote? John, did they give a separate quote for summer school?
No, it's below.
The contract says 75,500.
Okay, thanks,
It has
Kathy.
summer school in there.
It has summer school in there.
It does have some. I need to do some research.
Yeah.
We have until we can bring it back to 28th.
Yeah.
If that works.
Yeah.
I apologize. Been kind of busy.
It's all right. We'll just do that. That's
No
fine.
worries. I just couldn't figure out.
No,
how it wasn't matching up.
I apologize. I was kind of blindsided. I'm like, what? Oh my goodness. Okay. We'll bring it back.
All good.
I
Thanks, John.
apologize.
We'll deal with it at the next meeting. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So number 9 is item number 9 here is the Neil Armstrong Middle School Plan course statements. And this is a second reading with prepared by Juliana. So we've gone over this, but Juliana, you may have just a few comments before we move on this.
The only one I wanted to comment on was I updated the ethnic studies one to mirror what the high school has. So some of the language, we cleaned it up a little so that it would align better with what the high school has and has been doing for a couple of years already.
Okay.
So you might have seen that change.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments for Juliana? Okay, hearing none. I'll move that we approve the planned course statements as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. I'm a yes. Brad?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And Narcy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank
now we're-
you.
Yeah, thank you, Juliana. Now we're on to number 10, which is band camp and instrument purchase for grades 5 through 12. And this is Angela and John.
Yeah, so we're asking the board to approve the purchase of band instruments per the attached list with $70,229 for BCOC, $17,300 for WWBW, and $11,629 with Steve Weiss for a total purchase of $99,159 to be paid for using K-8 enrichment grant and the 912 recovery grant. And I'd just like to give a little bit additional background. The band camp will be open August 9th through 12th, and then also 16th through 20th, with a performance that the entire board is invited to on the 20th. And we're projecting, Angela's been working tirelessly getting out the digital registration. It's been a team effort, Dave Warner, and this agenda item, Eileen has been amazing helping us put this together. But we're projecting 30 grade 5-6 students to attend the band camps, 37 8th grade students, and 40 9-12 students for 100 students. And then the jazz band, August 2nd through 6th, with a performance on the 6th, the evening of the 6th. And it's 8 hours a day, 8 to 4, 50 kids, 30 from grades 5 through 8. That was one of the plan course statements that you just approved. And then 20 students for 9-12. So we're excited for that jazz band. And then the marching band for $26,268. That is going to take place August 23rd through the 27th with a performance on the 27th. And those camps will run for, again, 8 to 4 p.m. And it'll have 70 students, 25 from grades 7, 8, and 50 from 9-12. And with full disclosure, we're going to monitor how much money we spend overall, and we will likely come back with an additional request for probably $50,000 more instruments to help replace 30 and 40-year-old band instruments primarily throughout the system. So this is a huge chunk. This is legacy money. This is going to help our students for the next 20 to 40 years. And, you know, for some of these instrument repairs, the repairs are just more than the instruments worth, but you can't buy new ones. So anyway, that's what we have before you this evening. And again, Eileen, sorry to put you on the spot, you know, phone a friend with the earlier, but I just want to highlight, she's been awesome. And so has Kathy Bonson in getting all these before you. And next board meeting will come with orchestra before you and mariachi order. We're all working as fast as we can to get these camps and resources in place. Angela, did you have anything to add?
Just that it was also a huge chunk of work for Stuart, our band teacher, to get these bids, because, you know, of how bids work. It's a lot of work when you're teaching full time too. So shout out to Stuart.
Yep. Well said.
I think this is a great use of some of those funds. How are you guys going to decide where these instruments go after the summer camps?
That is really a great question. If you take a look, now this is just like today we were interviewing for band teacher at Tom McCall, you know, with the potential of ESSER money or additional money, but band, you can see in that price quote, Val, you can see band, those are the instruments under that. And then marching band are just those 3 instruments. Obviously, we're pulling from the other groups, and several students play in multiple bands. And then the jazz band is broken out as well. So the one with the dark, like the very first one, Yamaha Intermediate Oboe, is highlighted and it's red. And that red means
What,
it's
what page are you on?
I'm on the attachment, page 68.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So again, kudos to Eileen. And Eileen, if I get this wrong, please feel free to correct me. But 6,414, that's the highest priced bid. But you can see we've almost across the board go with the lowest price bid. I just want to call out that footnote at the bottom of that bid. Even though BCOC costs more for some items, their value is better as they are local. They have a repair shop with high qualified technicians, and we will have a 1-year warranty guarantee with them. They will come out to the schools frequently, and we have an existing relationship with them. The other companies won't do this. So Stewart strategically chose BCOC for the items that are more fragile, more sensitive, and therefore need regular maintenance and adjusting, like wind and string instruments. Does that
So
make
John,
sense?
I think our question is like, how are we going to determine if these are going to the high school, to NAMS, or to Tom McCall? Do you have that figured out? I think that's what she's trying to answer.
Initially, well, the band's tricky. The marching band is the high school.
Okay.
The jazz band is the middle school. So for instance, for the band program, of the $46,399, I thought you might ask this, $42,399 of those instruments are coming out of the high school grant, and only $4,000 are coming out of the K-8 enrichment. So we're going to try and balance that with the number of instruments and the greatest area of need. Now, again, we're relying upon Stuart, who's very familiar with this more than anybody. And then for the jazz band, $23,332 worth of instruments will go to the high school, while $3,160 will go to the 5-8, or I'm sorry, 7-8. And marching band, the full amount, 26,268. But in speaking with Stuart, if we have additional monies, the bulk of the monies that we come back to you for will be at 5-8 level. So again, we're totally trying to not go over, the grant parameters in these 2 grants that we have, and balancing the other needs and staff requests.
John, that might be something good for Stuart to do, is just provide the board with information on where these instruments will land. I mean,
Will do.
Okay, I would think that would make that's a good question. So
yeah, absolutely. And I can, Val, what we could do is sometime during the summer, hopefully we've written the camp so that if that new band teacher comes on board, we'd like to invite them to work in the program so that we can go ahead and get that feedback and that synergy with those band teachers to determine, okay, and look at the instruments, everybody that's in that program. So we can easily get you that list of these new instruments where they landed. Obviously, the bulk of this purchase is coming out of the high school monies.
Okay.
And so the bulk of it has to go to the high school.
Okay.
Right. Maybe some of the old instruments, though, could go to the lower levels, because if we want to
Right.
build this program back up, we got to start, younger, like at least at Tom McCall. So I just think that's something to keep in mind for building that program, and, giving the students that opportunity at a younger age.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So is there a motion on this one?
So moved.
I can make the motion that we approve the purchase of band instruments per the attached list, with $70,229 for BCOC, $17,300 for WWBW, $11,629 with Steve Weiss, for a total purchase of $99,159 to be paid for using K-8 enrichment grant and the 9-12 credit recovery grant.
Second.
Okay. Okay, we'll do a vote. I'm a yes. Kate,
Yes.
Narce,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and Brad.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay. Let's see, that is the end of the action items for this evening. Sounds like we'll have more next time. So next agenda, part of the agenda is future board items. And so the first one here, I think there are two. The first one is the school resource officer memorandum of understanding, and this is David Parker.
Thanks, Chair Everett. Let me hang on one second and reorganize my screen here. Last meeting, we presented some of the data around students and parents coming into this meeting. Tonight, I'm going to present what we found out from our engagement of parents, and then give you a quick orientation to the intergovernmental agreement draft that we're bringing forward, that we're asking the board to consider. It's future board action. So next board meeting, June 28th, would be where you would take this under consideration, either approve it or not approve it. So I just wanted to get us started on that. I've also got Osvaldo is here. He did some of our engagement. So if there's any questions, he's also available to answer. Again, we took and we went out to our parents with the same exact question that we asked our students and asked our staff members, and that's this right here. At the end of this, there's also a link to the report. So over the next 2 weeks, you'll have an opportunity to go look at all of the different thoughts that people had and where they were rated. The survey opened on May 27th, and it went to June 10th. We sent, this went out via our normal communication channels and email. It also went out as an auto dialer. We held 2 in-person sessions that we sent out auto dialers for our second language parents. And Osvaldo held a session on June 7th at NAMS in person, and then another session on June 9th in person. And basically, the in-person allowed for Spanish-speaking folks to hear about this. At the end, they could fill out a paper form, or they could also go and utilize Thought Exchange the same as everybody else. But we did do 2 in-person sessions. From all of this, we had 112 participants, about 121 thoughts, and about 2,500 different ratings. The breakdown of kind of students, 32% were the high school, about 9% were Neil Armstrong, and then 10% from Tom McCall, and then from more than one school, you'll see there's about 30%. Race and ethnicity, about 54% of the respondents were white. Currently in our district, we're about 45% white, so that's a little bit overrepresented. 16% are Latino, and the largest, not largest, but one of the preferred not to answer was 20%. So it's a little hard for us to see exactly who all of our respondents were. Most of our parents felt like the question, my students are safe, my student's school is safe. The vast majority, about 6%, disagreed with that though. This was the wordle that kind of came out of it. These are the words that had the highest ratings from all of the different thoughts. Quickly, someone, crisis, law enforcement. These were some of the highest rated thoughts that we got to, and I'm gonna move through these pretty quickly. And like I said, you're gonna get the report, so you can read through all of them later. But this is pretty representative of what we saw. Ranked number 1 was positive interactions with students and parents. The more positive interactions with police and community, the better. I will say that these are people's thoughts. So again, we saw research the last time around that talked to some of the thoughts aren't in line with that research, but I want to point out these were what people thought, and then people rated them. Police interactions, I think positive police interactions are a great thing. It shows the student that the officer is a person too. They're not all bad as they are often portrayed. School resource officers should be at our schools not only for safety, but also to build a positive relationship with students. You can see this kind of goes on. I feel it's the first line of defense we have for emergencies in school. I wouldn't feel like my child is safe without the SRO. And these were the basic same themes: student voice, relationships, safety, mental health and well-being, equity, SRO responsibilities and expectations, and then other. And when you get to the final report and you start looking, you'll be able to click on each of these themes and then see the different thoughts that were there. So this first one, these are the highest rated thoughts from this theme of student voice. I'm a graduate of Forest Grove myself, and the resource officer has always been a positive experience and a necessity, in my opinion. It's important to have a deterrent for students and staff. Whether we like police officers or not, they're an integral part of modern society. Making sure our students interact with police in a safe and familiar environment is very important. I feel that there needs to be more focus on protecting the victims of the school incidents and less focus on protecting the repeat offenders, because my son was beat up at school and the offender who had other issues with other students was the focus and not the protection of my son. These are the top rated thoughts in the relationship theme: positive interactions with students and parents. The more positive interactions with police and the community, the better. Police interactions, I think that positive police interactions is a great thing. The SRO at the high school for the last 10 years has been exceptional. I have interacted with all of them, and I believe that they are needed. There's lots of these thoughts that are in the same basic realm. Safety, this one was again, this feeling that having an SRO at the school increased the safety. School resource officers should be at our school not only for safety, but also to build a positive relationship with students. I feel more comfortable knowing someone who is trained to act quickly, to stop threats, is on location when needed. And the rest of these kind of, they're in that same vein. This is the part of this product that tries to look at the groups of respondents who have differences, and then what do they both agree on. So in this first group here, we've got 39 folks who are agreeing with side A here, and that is police interactions, I think, are positive. Police interactions is a great thing. It shows the student that the officer is a person too. The SRO at the high school for the last 10 years have all been exceptional. So that's side A. Side B over here would be none of the district's money should be allocated to support the SRO. It's hard enough to drive consensus to invest in education without it being diverted to other government agencies. Now, the 13 folks there rated that a 5, and our group A rated it very lowly. Information should be sheltered from the SRO unless warrants are issued by the courts. Our schools don't need to be backdoors for the police to subvert the personnel rights of our students or their families. So those are the two groups that have some different opinions. What they both agreed upon are rated in a similar way. I feel it's important the SRO is carefully selected and has been trained to work with children, adolescents, and in a school environment. I fear inappropriate use of force and inappropriate role in school discipline efforts by an untrained or undertrained law enforcement in schools. So that was an area that both of those two groups could agree upon. Here's another differences slide. Again, on side A, it's our kids and our staff, school staff deserve to be safe. Knowing your SRO and that they are available helps kids and staff feel more comfortable while decreasing risky behaviors. The SRO's primary function should be student safety. A student who feels safe will learn better. So side B over here, they have a different opinion. Their opinions were SROs should not be authorized to touch students. Other schools have had challenges with those who feel authorized to perform violence. Makes you think they'll try to build relationships, makes you think they'll try to build relationships with kids, and why they try hard with the students and not FGE citizens. Kids hear about current events. They know what's happening. Why do we expect them to feel safe with an SRO? My daughter has not spoken to an SRO and she's in the 5th grade. What they agree upon was, again, that same, and again, there's software that puts this together. So I don't pick these, the software picks them out. I feel it's important the SRO is carefully selected and has been trained to work with children, adolescents, and in a school environment. So again, that's the place where the two different groups could agree upon this. Lastly, it's the same basic difference again. Keep the students safe. SROs are specially trained to work with schools. On the differences side, consider the impact on perceptions of security among students of color and those with mental illness. Such students often feel targeted by police. It's important that all students feel safe at school, regardless of race, ethnicity, immigration status, disability. I worry that law enforcement escalates situations. Officers are not adequately trained on de-escalation, and they tend to aggravate a situation. The way my student views police is important, but unfortunately, I've not seen that. So those are some of the different opinions that are coming back to us right now. Again, I've got the link here to the full thought exchange report coming up, but now I want to just talk not briefly, but I want to go through the draft of the intergovernmental agreement and what are the changes that we're making to it? Because again, I think as I hear people talk, I don't disagree with any of the comments that have been made. I think those are all concerns for us. So the first thing, the purpose. I put a link to the draft. It's also in your packet. You can see what the draft is there. The purpose is basically there's 3 things: foster an efficient and cohesive program that will build positive relationships between police, school staff, and students, promote a safe and positive learning environment, and then decrease the number of youth formerly referred to the juvenile justice system. Having an officer that knows how to work with kids is important. And me as a former principal, calling an officer off the road and then having someone who already knows your kids, knows your family, there's different ways that they react. And so the SRO is a way for us, at least, to make sure that they understand kids. We'd have 3 basic goals here that we would take data on: foster a positive school environment based on respect for all students, knowing them all by name, strength, and need. Educate students, staff, and families on relevant law enforcement topics, age of consent, child abuse. We do have, there are situations in our districts surrounding the law and crime that happen weekly, and having an interaction, a liaison between the police department and our organization will happen whether this is approved or not approved. There just will be an interaction. And then strengthen the community relationship by creating a safe school environment, providing a law enforcement resource to school administrators, teachers, and students to reduce crime. So those are the goals of the program that we worked out with the city. The city went through and called various cities around us to find out how they were funding and what the cost would be of the SRO. And they've come back and they've changed it. Most of the other cities around us were not charging as much money. So the price has been lowered to $54,600, which is basically the cost of an average police officer for 9 months. And there's some other details that you'll see in the IGA. I didn't put all of the specifics there about what part of the salary table they're looking at, but the basic gist is the cost for the next year would be $54,600. Changes that we would be looking at, one would be officer recruitment. We would be involved in the officer recruitment when that opportunity presents itself. We would provide preference for officers that are ethnically, linguistically, and culturally diverse. Education is also them having some higher education. That's what we're doing here, is educating kids. So them having more experience in that world is a good thing for us. Training requirements. There's a big list of training requirements that we've added to the IGA. Some of them, the police department needs to provide, and that would be nationally recognized training on being an SRO. The district would provide some of the social emotional learning things that we're doing, and also they would be providing the anti-bias and equity training for the officer. The uniform, we heard this from our students, which is they would like the officer to be in a more casual dress. They would be polo shirt, regular pants. The officer would still have their bulletproof vest on underneath their polo, and they would still have their sidearm because that is kind of the minimum recommendations from the police department. School discipline, SROs will not be involved in school discipline. This will be something that we'll have to, if this contract is approved, we will sit down with our administrators and talk this through. I think that area has been a little gray over the past couple of years. And this will be something that we'll have to reestablish exactly when the officer is involved in the discipline and when they are not. The basic gist is if they're not violations of law, then that's not the officer's job. That's the job of the administrator to take care of. Data collection, we'll have this is a place that up to this point, we don't have very much data. So we will start taking data. The SRO will submit monthly reports minimally on the law enforcement calls on the school property, number of presentations, lessons delivered, staff families, the topic and the number of participants, and the number of investigations, because we need to start figuring out how many interactions the SRO is having. If there's other data that you would like us to keep, we can also deal with that. And then release of student information, they would be they're part of the organization, but just like all of the folks in our organization, you're on a need to know basis. And really the only information that we would be sharing with the SRO is really around contact information, which is they need to get a hold of parents or something to that extent. Program review, we've written in some program review into this intergovernmental agreement. We'll go back out again in next May. We'll gather feedback from students, families, caregivers, the SROs, certified staff, classified staff, and administrators on their experience with the SRO program and FGSD. And that'll happen again next May. This MOU and the SRO data reports will be reviewed by you. We'll bring it back to you, the data and the information that we got in May from them next year. We can modify or revise this on a yearly basis. So if there's things we want to change in the agreement, there is built into the agreement termination clause. So there is a way, if you decide later to step out of it for whatever reasons you deem important, that's still, we have that ability. And then both the PD and the we can adjust the MOU, and we wrote it for 3 years, but that could also be changed too. I mean, it just seemed like we needed a time period to write this in, and if we're going to be adjusting it year after year, 3 years seemed like a good starting period. So those are all of the elements that are written into the IGA that is in your packet. And before I get to the questions part, I just wanted, I've had a lot of interaction with folks around, and we heard it from the parents and from our students around, like, what are we doing mental health wise? And I just wanted to remind the board kind of our investments over the last 2 years in mental health. The majority of these investments we'll see fully next September. But we've currently invested in 7 additional counselors to approach our ASCA standards. We've got 2 student success coaches now who are basically working with teachers around how do we create classroom environments that are have social emotional learning, that we're taking that into account. We've got 2.0 mental health coordinators who are helping families connect with outside resources. We've got a behavioral health and wellness coordinator who's trying to put all of this together into a system that works. We've added 12, almost 13 FTE of classroom and building supervision. That was all part of our student investment account. And specifically, these are folks who are getting advanced training in de-escalation and social emotional learning pieces. We're developing the MTSS system, which is how each school will begin to work with students, identify kids who need more help in attendance, academics, behavior, social emotional learning, and eventually equity. We have a partnership with Youth Contact, who are kind of our community-based family therapy. And then we've also purchased software, Panorama, that we'll use to actually make these decisions based on student data. So I just wanted to remind, this is probably, it's over $2 million worth of investments in mental health and wellness, besides what we're doing with the SRO. And with this, I'm going to open this up to questions. We've got about 2 weeks. The June 28th is where this will come up for action. And I'm sure there will be community members who want to express themselves through public comment. But I'll take some, if you have questions about the draft of the intergovernmental agreement or the engagement series, we're able to take that.
Dave, this is Narce.
Hey.
I know that Henry did a PowerPoint presentation a few weeks ago. And has there been any interaction with our city councilors, because they're also a big stakeholder here, such as the Hillsborough School Districts, probably about 24 hours, a few last days, there's an article that just came up about what Hillsborough School District is doing in regards to the SROs as well, because this is sort of a national thing going on at this particular point. So I guess I'm just posing a question about, I'd like to see what the commitment of the city council in Forest Grove is as well. I do get worried about just a historical situation with policing in our country, and I would be here all night if I would get into the details of all of that. I know you mentioned the bilingualism and so forth and so on. I think it's really important to have us also think about the trauma informed is very important as well. And I don't mean to like create more work, but I feel like we don't have a lot of options here. What are other alternatives possibly besides a SRO? What does that look like? What are other districts doing? What could we be doing that could be creative as well? Anyway, those are just what I'm thinking out loud at this particular time. Those are the thoughts I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll have to touch base with Jesse and the city councilors, and I'll try and in the next week or so put together some information. I don't know what's possible, but I'll go and do that. So this IGA is drafted off of Hillsborough. So this is exactly what Hillsborough is doing. They are running their SRO program. They've added in the data. They've added in some check-ins. They've added in making sure that they provide kind of purpose for the SROs. So this is exactly what Hillsborough is doing right now. The mental health and wellness part, my last slide there, we've got $2 million worth of investment into social emotional learning and trauma informed. So there's really nothing, I can't think of anything more that we would be doing in that direction than we're not already doing. We actually just need to get to next year and start seeing some of that play out.
I agree. I just finished going through the article that Hillsborough, it came out in the newspaper, but I do think that they invested a lot more time, because I have communication with their school board members,
Yeah.
They've been at it for several months, almost like 6 to 9 months, where we just started this conversation maybe a month or so ago. So I do get worried about us adopting something similar because our town is different than Hillsborough. I do think that they do have some good best practices and they have good foundations, but we're missing that city council commitment. Yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there that we have not invested as much time as the school board and the district in Hillsborough has spent as we have.
Are you finished, Narcy? Because I have a couple of questions. Or are you up?
I'm done.
Okay. I want to agree with Narcy. I don't think we've adequately put together, spent enough time on this. And the email that was sent to us by Jennifer Norman, there was a whole bunch of articles, which of course I read them all, except for the one there was 200 pages and I didn't get through that, but I will read it before the next meeting. But when I look at the SRO and I look at some of the comments that were made, and I also look at the survey with only 16% Hispanic that have participated in the survey. And then this one comment I wrote down is the perception of safety for one group of students valued more than the feelings of fear and persecution in a different group of students. Do we have enough data information to know how our diverse population feels? I do think we need to have somebody, and one of the things that I saw in there is they recommended having hire a safety counselor who works with the teachers and the parents and the students. The piece that concerns me is that I don't think we've adequately had enough time. And all of the articles seem to look at children with children that are part of our diverse population. They're the ones that end up being in the pipeline in the judicial system. And one of the questions I wonder, and I know that this is probably hard to get at, but do we know in the last 5 years, 10 years, how many of our Forest Grove High School students ended up in the judicial system? And that's something that I wonder about. I mean, it's not really relative at this time, but one of the opening statement with the MOU or MUO or whatever it's called, I don't know what the term is right off the top of my head, but it says, hold on a minute. I wrote all this stuff down. I can't read my handwriting, God forbid. But it was talking about the relationship of communication with our community, and how important that is and how we develop that. And I am really concerned that, it's just been in the last year, and it's because of what I hear and what I've read and what I'm understanding. But there's serious issues that have been brought up in the last year with the police department. And it's been related to Hispanics, to Blacks, to women. And it's been uncovered by community reporters in that. And it's really caused a sense for me of wondering what's happening in the police department. And I'm concerned that they need to do some in-house reflection, equity training, et cetera, and I would prefer to let them take care of bringing themselves up to standard and hire someone that's a safety counselor for the high school. I'm really concerned, and I was concerned about comments when I read, and I don't know, I haven't seen this report by Jennifer Norman, where she said they had 53 responses in the last 9 months that they asked people about all kinds of issues, that our administrators were allowing the police to discipline the students at school. You know, some of the other questions I had, you know, what does the student engagement look like? Uniforms and weapons was addressed, record keeping was addressed. A review process by students and parents and the community members, I think, is important. But originally, I was all in favor of the SRO at the high school, and I think that they are in turmoil, and I think that they need to get their organization and a plan out so that they can really relate to the issues that are Hispanic and children of color at the high school, because in all the reports that I've read, the majority of kids that are tracked are our diverse population. And I'm not sure the city police department has the skill set. I mean, it would be fine if they came aboard and joined our group, but you know, an 8-hour one-day session equity training is not enough. And so I would prefer to look at something like hiring, you know, a safety counselor. I don't think we've spent enough time talking about this. I think there's a lot involved in this, and I know it's just one more thing on your plate, but I want to be careful about how we go about this. And I definitely would not, I would do a 1-year contract, and I don't know, I'm just not in support of jumping on this right now.
Thanks for your comments, Kate. I would just clarify one thing, which is in the training there, they're not doing equity training one time in the year. Actually, it goes every month. They meet with the school as they're going through their equity training. But thank you for your comments. Those are all.
I just have one question for Kate. Kate, are you reading what's going on in Forest Grove, in the city of Forest Grove, or is this a national trend you're talking about?
It's both, Brad. It's both. But you know, in Forest Grove, the issue with what happened at that family's house with the 4 children and the Black Lives Matter flag, and that it was the lack. To me, okay, it's a personal opinion, but it was that the city was covering up. That's the way I perceived it. They were covering up and then they got caught. And then it was the identification at a Black Lives rally in June last year where they misused the equipment. And then it was the way they went about, and that was targeting women. And then it was how they got rid of a female police chief. And so I'm beginning to, you know, and I have never had any, I've always had real positive experience with the police department, but I am a white older woman. I am not a Hispanic person, and I'm concerned. And you know, I just think that periodically we all have to step back and say, you know, am I doing a good enough job? Am I really, and how are they going to bridge that? You know, it's not me that created the situation.
So you know who you're talking to, right?
I know who I'm talking to, and I care about the kids, but I am not Hispanic, and more than 50% of our kids are Hispanic. How do they feel?
I would only say that the data that David's collected is probably more germane to what's going on at Forest Grove High School than those incidents that went on. And I understand the whole situations that's gone on in our town, but that in terms of the MOU, I would have some questions about trying to generalize what went on there to the MOU. But with that said, I will take that into consideration, your comments.
I think one thing that we need to think about as well as sort of an umbrella approach is that we just recently came up with an equity statement, right? And it specifically talks about what was talked about earlier, which is that critical race approach, which is policy, procedures. So it's really digging into issues of diversity and equity in general. You know, Valerie was asking good questions earlier to Juliana, and really about those policies and procedures, which I really appreciate. And I think from my perspective, it's what's happening here. Now, Kate, as you mentioned, what, you know, I also have big red concern flag about 16% only of Hispanic/Latinx have voiced their input, their concerns. From my perspective, again, personal perspective, is that our community, particularly our Latinx, Hispanic population in Forest Grove School District, is very poor, low income. There's fear. There's the undocumented situation. So to have people come forward and share all of their stories, or the parents or the children, it's probably most likely not going to happen because of that fear and because of that poverty and all of the issues within our. So that's sort of against, not against our district, but it sort of works towards. They're not just going to come forward and say, hey, this happened to my child, or so forth and so on. Nationwide, from my perspective, and it goes back to reading, and I don't have the article in front of me, and I would have to go and dig it, but I used to do presentations in Valleys, in Portland, you name it, you know, working with police in schools and so forth and so on. There's been studies that if a child does not read well, or he or she or they need to be reading by, I think it's second or third grade, the likelihood of getting into the criminal pipeline, it's very high. And they use that data to actually build prisons. And those children tend to be brown boys, Black children. I went to a state of Oregon, the school of, what is it called? The Oregon State had some sort of K through 12 session. I think it was right before COVID hit. And they were actually showing us data about children of color not dropping, but being pushed out of K through 12 systems throughout Oregon. The youngest suspension, I was shocked that children were being suspended from school at second and third grade in some of our districts. Not at Forest Grove, but some of other districts. To me, that's just more, it's a reality that's happening in our country. It's a reality that's happening in Oregon. I think, this is my perspective, having lived in Washington County for many years, currently grew up in where I'm at right now with my parents, just doing some family stuff. Mom, I'm in a meeting. So give me a minute. I am so sorry. My mom is like, this is why I don't work from home. She goes, if you have people waiting for you right now, I'm like, Mom, they're going to have to wait. This is important work for me. And it's actually a teacher from the school district here in Madras in Jefferson County. So I'm so sorry. You know, Mom say it's her house, so she comes in. Sorry, Dave, she rules right now. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we have most recently the Community Police Advisory Commission. And I'm actually representing Forest Grove School District in that commission. And they're intense meetings at times because we do have representatives from the elderly, homeless, Latinx, from every different nonprofit that you can imagine. And there are issues going on in our community, as you shared, Kate. Now, to be honest, I mean, to be fair to the police department in regards, the investigation continues to happen right now with the whole racial issue that happened during the Halloween time with the Latinx family. That was the experience those children that go to our district had with our police department, right? So I'm just bringing all that up because it's a bigger picture. I also am going to come clean. I do have a lot of implicit bias towards police officers. I have 3 brothers, 3 brown brothers. It all started in the school districts with SROs because of their implicit bias, in criminalizing their behavior. White boys will be white boys, boys will be boys. Latino kids, it means trouble, or Black kids. I do trainings and all this. So anyway, I'm just bringing up my perspective here that we do have issues at Forest Grove, and we have issues in Washington County, and we do have issues throughout the whole state. We're not unique. I do believe that Henry is trying his best, but he's inherited a lot of work, and I don't know how long that's going to take. That's all I wanted to say. And I know we're not going to make a decision today, but I just think it's good to dialogue about it.
I think one of the things jumping in my mind, I will try and put together a place where you can go back and look at all of the data, because we do have a lot of data from our students and from our parents, and it would be great for folks to go take a look at it. So I'll try and put that into one place and send that out just so you can get to all of these things in one spot.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. So this comes up for as it's scheduled now, it comes up for a vote in 2 weeks on the MOU. And I guess that's where we leave it this evening. We've got 2 weeks. Dave, you're going to send that to I think you said the link or something will be sent to us.
Yeah, I'll just try and summarize all this stuff just so you can get to, there's a lot of data to look at here. There's a lot of opinions to review. So I just want to put it into a place where you can get to all of this quickly and be able to go through and look at it.
So I mean, I would just say that we've been thinking about this since January, I think. I think that there have been conversations, whether it's from community comments at board meetings, but this has been on the radar since about January. And it has been, I think, the month of May where most of the data was collected in the meetings. Maybe it was a little earlier than that. So it has not been 9 months, but it has come to us since really, I guess maybe there was some community talk about this in November. Maybe as far back as that in terms of community comments to the board. So I believe that this item has been with us for some time. And whether, folks think that the information that was presented tonight is enough or not enough, I think that the district's tried to work hard to get the voices of anybody who had a voice in this. And I think that's what the report tonight shows. So, I think it comes up for a vote in 2 weeks unless something, I think that's where we're at with this. So with that, I think we'll leave this topic. And I think there's one more, Dave, that you have for us for future items. I think it's
yes.
Okay.
It looks like Dave Hollinsworth, who is a board member at Northwest Regional ESD, resigned his position. So there's 2 folks here, Doug Doherty and Eliza Forrest Knight, who have put their names in to resume to take over for Dave. So in 2 weeks, it'll be an action item. You'll see all of their, it looks like they put in kind of information on the candidates, although there wasn't a lot of information on Eliza, but the information's there, and then the next board meeting will take a vote. on which one we would like to. That's correct, right, Kathy?
Yep, that's correct. We have to vote before July 1st. If you have questions, just let me know and I can ask Lauren at the ESD. I think you probably know Doug Doherty. He's been on there forever, so.
Okay, thanks, Kathy and Dave. So we'll vote on that. That'll be an action item at the next meeting as well. So let's see, future board items or board discussion. I don't, unless it's open to anybody who has a future board item or something other to say this evening. Is there anybody who has comments before we move on? Okay, hearing none. And then there's just also in your report is some information. So the June 1st, 2021 enrollment report was included in the packet. And then also the finance report. So the report for May 2021 was included in the packet for your review. Okay, and with that, there being no further business, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:18 p.m. So have a good rest of your evening, everybody, and thanks for attending.
Thanks, everybody.